why don't we get started? Sarah will be back here in a minute, so why don't we start out with saying the Pledge of Allegiance?
Recording in progress.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we're going to start out with public comment. Lisa Ann, why don't you come up and state your name and sign in if need be.
I did sign in. I guess I don't know what the procedure is here, so I might need a little guidance on what sort of information you need.
So Sarah's making your copy, so we'll distribute those when you come in, but why don't you just give an overview of you and the business and where you're at?
Okay, so Outer Gnome Project Vermont is a collaboration with a California sustainable clothing brand. They are fair trade, fair wage, organic materials. They know their farmers. They try and stay out of China. Most of their manufacturing is in Vietnam and Portugal. I've been collaborating with them for almost 4 years now. We take what I call their leftovers. So in the garment industry, there's a lot of clothes that ends up in warehouses or damaged or just sort of left over from their samplings of designing for their capsules. And so we came up with the idea of Project Vermont, which would be the collaboration of them sending us those materials and us finding, uses for them so they don't end up in the landfill. So 4 years, Outer Gnome has changed over their management and has decided to sort of pull out of the collaboration or to end the partnership, which is fine. I do think in the 4 years that we've been there, we've really, do you mind my copy? I love my copy. Sorry, I know it, but thanks. Anyway, so what you see on the front is currently what we are. We are closing December 15th. The way this works is they send me all the clothes and all the materials and the ends of bolts, so I have no costs as far as that goes. And then I upcycle, repurpose, reimagine it, offer it to the community, offer it online, offer it in their stores, East Coast, West Coast, Boston, New York, California. So all of that is ending, that being said, but I'd love to continue to provide for the community in some way that I can in that spot. Because I don't have the source of clothing as I do now, I would have to find another source. But I'm also thinking about maybe diversifying and becoming something else, a little more versatile, right? That's sort of what upcycling, repurposing is about, right? The ability to pivot depending on what materials you get. So the idea is a remarket, which is, they call them vintage markets, they call them, like Revival is an example of one where individuals rent booths, they sell their wares, you can curate what you want, you can make it a certain themed store, or you can, decide who you want to be able to rent the space. So this is pretty much what the idea is, right? Reimagining, reclaiming, reinventing. What is our inspiration? What is our mission, right? At Remarket, we believe in reimagining the old, reclaiming the used, and reinventing the forgotten. Each vendor would bring a distinct collection, making every visit a new experience. Whether you're a dedicated thrifter, collector, or someone seeking sustainable shopping options, Remarket invites you to explore an ever-evolving mix of styles and eras under one roof. Rediscover the past, support local sellers, and make a sustainable choice for the future. This does include artists. I've already had artists approach me, so wall space is also an option, which I think would be really nice. I was carrying Mike Conrad's art, which is reclaimed materials. He uses barn doors, he uses shutters, which was a really nice pairing for my space. So what would we look like? A little bit different than what we look like now. I don't know how many of you have actually been in the store. I know I've seen Tim in there and his sister, but I don't know, and you've been in there. So a unique vintage-inspired marketplace where history and style come together. We would offer spaces for local vendors and vintage enthusiasts to showcase and shop high-quality thrifted and reclaimed items. Everything from furniture and antique decor to retro fashion, handmade crafts, and one-of-a-kind collectibles. Items will be carefully selected for their charm, quality, and sustainable appeal. The great thing about the block that I'm in is it gets a lot of foot traffic. I feel very connected to the farmers market in the summer. That sort of goes hand in hand. The people that are coming to the market come in to see me. 4 years of customers and personalities and friendships that I've formed, I think those individuals would continue to come to the space. It'd be nice to have clothing as well as dishwares and antiques and that sort of thing. So Project Vermont doesn't go away. It is what I do. It's what I was doing before I partnered with Outer Known. I still partner with individuals and other companies. I've done work for Boy Scouts in Vermont. They replaced all their tents and brought the tents to me, and we created some bags and log carriers and that sort of thing for them. The individual bass player from Fish, he comes in, buys outfits that he wears on stage, and this page sort of shows you an example of what you might transform, which is what I still do, so a jacket into a vest and that sort of thing. We've just started offering lessons and classes and sort of drop-in things. I think I have to build that community, but I do think that would continue to build. I have created quite a list of people that are interested in classes just coming into the holiday season. I'm not sure when that would be offered, but that would also be part of the space, just not as big of a space as it's been so far. So toward the back or maybe in the basement, which has equal square footage. So collaborations with individuals or groups, repair, mending, alteration services, instructional classes, donation items made for local organizations. We get a lot of materials donated from people who pass away and their families clean out, and we offer to take those materials, find homes for it, or we use it for ourselves and make items that we then donate to the hospitals or shelters that need things like blankets or specialty items. So in order for me to stay in the space, I'm not sure, I think it would take some time to build the number of vendors I would need to sustain and stay there. I'm proposing a year of sort of building that clientele and that group of people that would be renting the space along with the city, with like a review, I would say a review after a full year. Maybe it's a shame that we don't get to do this Christmas holiday season because Outer Known has the space through to next year, but I think that would be a sort of a critical piece to be able to see if the numbers work.
Anyone have any questions for Lisa Ann? This is something that Arlie's working on as well. You're in regular contact with Arlie.
Yeah.
And Dom and I met with Lisa Ann as well.
It's also contingent on the building owner. There are discussions going back and forth with him.
When is Outer Known done?
End of March, but we close the store December 15th with the intent of emptying it by the end of December.
Why don't we, Sam and I, get a chance to catch up offline a little bit and then package something up for council consideration?
Yep.
Who owns the building?
Bo Vukovic?
In the meeting we had,
Cheryl.
Cheryl Leclerc was there as well, representing Bo for that discussion. I would say I think, I don't know, it's been a great addition to the downtown.
For sure.
We can keep some sort of structure to that, that would be great. whereas Dom said he will get with Harley and reach out to you,
Okay,
and we will get back to you.
thank you so
All
much.
right, thank you. Next up on the agenda is, any other public comment? Thank you, Trudy. Anyone have any public comment on anything that's not on the agenda? How about on Zoom? Not seeing any hands up, so we'll move on. Catherine, if you want to come up. So we'll do item number 4, update from Northwest Regional Planning Commission. Catherine Dimitri, who is the Executive Director and has been for 25 years. Close,
A little more.
a little more.
Yeah, this year's 30 years at the Regional
Oh,
Planning
really?
Commission,
Yeah.
not all of them as director, but 30 years went by really fast.
Thank you for joining us, Catherine. We'll
Yes,
turn it over to you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to come and talk with you tonight. I wanted to do 2 things. One is just a quick check-in about regional planning and our partnership with the city. And then the other is to talk about Act 181, which was passed in the legislative session last year, what it means for regional planning commissions and the work we have to do, and how that connects to the city. And I was going to stop and visit the City Planning Commission after, so I'm really glad they came down here instead. So, Northwest Regional Planning Commission is one of 11 regional planning commissions across the state. Everywhere in the state has a regional planning commission. We are governed by a board of regional commissioners. For our board, there's 2 appointees from each municipality. Chip serves as one and Elizabeth Nance is the other. And I want to first start off by thanking you for sending us both Chip and Elizabeth. They are great additions to our board. Both of them serve on our regional planning committee, which you will hear in a few minutes is going to be very busy and doing some really important work coming up. Our work is supported by a host of federal and state grants, and most importantly, most of those grants require a match, and those match funds are primarily the municipal contributions that we get from our member municipalities in Franklin and Grand Isle counties, and so I'm thanking you as well for that budgetary contribution you make to us each year. Just a few highlights of some of the work we've done. We have a robust brownfields grant program where we have assessment funds and cleanup funds, and we've partnered with the city on several properties over the years. Right now we have some active grants at 74 Weldon, 7th Street, 12 to 22 7th Street, and the 20 LaSalle Street property. And so we really appreciate that opportunity to be a partner with the city and help with the redevelopment of those properties. In addition, we used to have under our umbrella Healthy Roots Collaborative, which was a local food systems organization. They've since shifted to CVOEO and are now a program of CVOEO. But while they were with us, they really served a crucial role connecting the restaurants and food businesses with farmers, and ran the Everyone Eats program in Franklin and Grand Isle counties through and immediately following all of the pandemic shutdowns that we had. And that was a great economic boost for several businesses within the city. And then we are currently collaborating with your energy committee and helping to support the energy committee with our energy planner. And we had a great partnership with them doing the window dressers build that we used your downstairs space for, where we were able to build hundreds of inserts that are used for energy efficiency for people's windows, made available for free for people who are low income. So that was a great project, and we appreciate your partnership on that. So I'm going to jump into Act 181 a little bit. So has anyone heard of that besides Chip and Dom? Anybody? Probably me. All right. So last year, the legislature passed Act 181, and what it does is made sweeping changes to 3 areas of work that touches on redevelopment, planning, and Act 250. It changed regional plans. Just like the city has a plan, we have a regional plan, we have a future land use plan. It changed regional plans so that all 11 regional planning commissions will use the same future land use categories. Those future land use categories will then serve as the basis for some changes to Act 250 jurisdictional thresholds and the state's designation program. So I'm gonna take the designation program first. So right now you have a downtown and a growth center, and the city does the applications, does the renewals, you go before what used to be the downtown board, you get approved, and every municipality across the state does that same process. Moving forward, you won't have to do that anymore. What will happen is the regional planning commissions, when we do our regional plans, we will map those areas that qualify for the state designation program. Our regional plans will go to a state body for approval of the whole regional plan, and once that's done, your designations are automatic and they stay in place. There's no renewals. You don't have to do any of that paperwork that you've had to do. So that's a great streamlined change. Designation programs have been reduced from 5 separate programs to 2. So there was also a simplification of that. The city won't lose any benefits. All the benefits that you're currently eligible for will continue on. So it really simplifies things from the administrative process for the city accessing those state designation programs, because there's no more renewals, there's no more paperwork and application filing and showing up at the state board to get your approvals.
When does that take effect?
That will take effect once our regional plans are approved. It will take effect. We're aiming for the end of 2025. So you don't have to do any more renewals. You're done.
Even though it's not approved.
Correct, because the part of the bill, they made all the existing designations continue on until the regional plans are approved. So even if you had one that was expiring, you don't have to do any more renewals. So that's a great benefit.
Chad, do you like that?
Yeah, because our growth center was up for renewal probably next year, so.
Perfect. So we just saved you a week's worth of paperwork.
Yeah, a couple weeks.
And another benefit of that is it enables that boundary drawing to happen here, and we'll work with your planning commission, with council, with your staff to do that boundary drawing and make sure it reflects the needs of the city and the requirements of the statute, and then you're done. You don't have to do anything else when it comes to your designations. So let's talk about how regional plans will now impact Act 250. So this future land use map will have 10 land use categories. 4 of them, downtown centers, village centers, planned growth areas, and village areas. So really the areas that are planned for growth within the region will have a different Act 250 trigger once our regional plans are approved. So there's a new scheme called tiers. So there's tiers of Act 250 jurisdiction. Tier 1, Tier 1A, Tier 1B are those 4 growth areas I just talked about, so your downtowns and the planned growth areas around them. As part of Act 181, if a municipality chooses to opt in, residential developments of 50 units or less on 10 acres or less will not need an Act 250 permit. Right now, the trigger outside of downtowns is 11. So if you do more than 10 or more housing units outside of a place like the growth center or the downtown, you have to go through Act 250. So that's going to go up to 50 if a municipality opts in. Now there's also Tier 1A jurisdiction. And Tier 1A jurisdiction will be available to those municipalities that have staff, that have smart growth zoning, that have infrastructure. Those are the 3 key pieces. St. Albans City meets all of those. And if you so choose, you can apply for Tier 1A designation, and that means any project anywhere in those areas are exempt from Act 250, commercial or residential of any size. So it enables you to be the driver for what happens for development in your community, and your rules will be the rules that apply. And so it enables you to really streamline the things you want to streamline and put some, bumpers around the places you want to put bumpers around, and you don't rely, Act 250 will not come into play. So you're really more in charge of your own destiny when it comes to permitting there. So that's a great opportunity for St. Albans City if you choose to move forward and do that. And I'm hoping that you do, because I think it would be a great opportunity for the city. And it makes a difference, in a lot of ways, both from a cost, time, and certainty perspective for your developers to know that it stops at the local level. And so that's, I think, a real benefit for a lot of the development project that the city has been so successful in recent years. The timing, we'll talk about timing. So regional planning commissions have to, by the end of December 2026, have our new regional plans done. So we've got a little bit of time. The adoption process itself for us will take about 6 months. So once we have a plan done, it's going to take us 6 months from that point just to get to the adoption and approval process. So backing up and looking at our workload, we are actually going to start working on the regional plan pretty much next month and start working in earnest with our communities right after the new year. So winter through early spring, we'll be working with your staff, with your planning commission, to look at the boundaries, to look at the plans for St. Albans City to make sure they mesh with your needs and the statute. As I noted, Chip and Elizabeth are both on the regional plan committee, so they'll be participating both locally and regionally, so that's a great connection for the city. We'll be coming back to the city council, or your staff will be coming back to you sometime probably in summer to ask you the question of whether you want to opt in. So that's where you get the immediate change where 50 housing units or less will not be subject to Act 250. And that's a decision point you'll have to make before we submit our regional plan sometime in the early fall. So that's the timing for you. Next few months, more work with planning commission and your staff. Back to you sometime in the summer for a decision about the Act 250 status.
Are you on the new renewal for the regional plan? Is this being moved up, or is this your regular schedule?
This is moved up. Yeah, we just did a full regional plan rewrite 2 years ago, and we just did the energy plan last year. When we did the rewrite of the last regional plan, we didn't touch the land use section because we knew this bill was going to be under consideration, so we left that alone. So
When you wouldn't have that?
we wouldn't have had to do a regional plan for another 6 years, but we'll do it early.
And when you talk about 50 housing units, that includes apartments?
Yeah. But if you do Tier 1A, which is the full exemption from Act 250, that will be available to the city because you would meet the parameters.
What's involved with 1A? Isn't this a no-brainer?
I would say the only part of the no-brainer is that you are responsible for managing the pre-existing permits, Act 250 permits. That's probably,
And there aren't too many.
yeah, because you've had a downtown, it's not,
I think the city owns half the Act 250 permits in the city
Probably.
anyway.
yeah, but that's the only
We
potential.
would have to make some changes to our zoning to meet, there are a couple requirements in your local zoning to be eligible for Tier 1A. And we'd have to take a look at preserving natural areas, a couple of things we don't always look at.
But there are tweaks more than wholesale.
yeah, it's definitely doable
Yeah.
if we want to do it.
So yeah, I think I would agree with you. I think it's basically a no-brainer. Yeah.
Catherine, I'm having flashbacks to like my first 6 months on the job, and the growth center designation was underway, right?
Yeah.
And it was just kind of one of those things that you did,
Right.
right? And I forget who the NRPC staffer was at the time, but she was like, yeah, and this will make it easier to do a TIF, right? And that designation, that's what did it all.
That was the beginning of everything. Yeah. Yeah.
So how will it affect TIF for other communities?
It won't have any change. It doesn't change the TIF legislation for other communities. Now, it doesn't make more available if that's where you're going. No. But one of the, there is a great benefit to having consistent land use categories across the state. Because when you talk about something like a TIF, instead of saying like each municipality needs to figure it out on their own, you gotta do this, you gotta do that, you could, like as a state policy, say if you're in a downtown or village center in a regional plan, you're eligible for TIF, period. There's ways that this could actually set the stage for other state policy decisions. So I'm pretty excited to see what could come of it. Biggest change probably since I've been in my 30 years. I'm also excited to be able to come to you and say we're updating our regional plan, and it really matters, and we appreciate you paying attention because it will actually really mean something.
Catherine, how would this affect projects that have either been exempt from permitting or have already been permitted at the time this is adopted?
Okay, so if it's been exempt from Act 250, there's kind of like there's this complicated, weird in-between time, which I'm just gonna ignore. So if it's exempt, it will stay exempt. And then,
So if I started a project years ago, and I was exempt from Act 250, there's nothing in this legislation that's going to say you're now under some new rubric or some new type of jurisdiction that the municipality's not going to have.
if you have commenced construction, you're vested in whatever
What's the
decision
definition
was.
of construction?
There's a definition in the Act 250
A map?
rules. I don't know, there's gotta be some sort of ground touching. Yeah, and then,
That's not assuring me too much.
Well, any infrastructure, right, basically,
yeah, but also,
road or,
when it comes to the city itself, I can't off the top of my head think of something that would have been exempt that then would not be. Off the top of my head, I can't think of anything. And then in terms of the second question, how would it affect those things that already have a permit?
Yeah.
So a couple of different ways. Right now, also as part of this bill, there was a host of interim exemptions. So if you already have an existing permit and you're doing one of the things that are exempt on an interim basis, you won't need Act 250 even though you have an underlying permit, because they made all of those original or amended jurisdictions, so you won't have to touch your underlying Act 250 permit. If the city takes over as Tier 1A and everything's exempt, the way it would impact your existing permit is when you do something on your property, the city will incorporate any relevant Act 250 conditions into the local permit. And then that's it. Some of the conditions, if you look at an Act 250 permit, there's usually like 50 conditions, and by the time construction's over, 38 of those are irrelevant, and so there's a lot of stuff that just isn't important.
That's not typical of a lot of permits in the city, because a lot of them have to do with resources that aren't just being protected, like natural resources or permits elsewhere in the state, where there are much different considerations than what we have here in the city.
Does that have anything to do with changing any wetland rules or stream bank rules or anything
No,
like that?
those are separate,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
So all those permits that you would have to get normally to fulfill some of the Act 250 conditions, those don't go away,
Those do not go
do
away.
not go away.
But they'll now be enforced by either those divisions or the municipality?
They'll be enforced by the divisions that issue the permit.
Okay.
the council have any questions? Eric, you good? Maria, Chad? We'll open it up to the planning commission and others to see if you have any questions. Catherine? Hearing none. Oh, go ahead, Carl.
You mentioned changes in our current zones. Do you know a little bit more specifics of which?
So in order to be eligible for Tier 1A, your community, for instance, will have to allow 4 stories across the area that you want to be Tier 1A.
Across a substantial portion of the area, not the whole thing.
You know, that's a bit of a lift for us, but we might be able to find a way to do it. Like maybe we allow for 4 stories, but if you reach 3 or more stories, your setbacks are wider. You know, it's little things like that we'd have to look at. There's a little bit more about protecting natural areas we'd have to look at. I think first we would look at, do we want Tier 1A? Do we think we can handle it? And then what are the changes we have to make to do it, and is it worth it? And then it goes before the new land, through the RPC, and then before the new Land Use Resources Board.
Is there an opt-in period, or is it whatever we decide to opt in?
So, the initial opt-in for 50 units or less would happen this summer, fall. The tier 1A, which is the full exemption, those applications will be available after January, I think, of January 1st, 2026. And then anytime after that, the city could decide to apply.
Thank you.
But it is probably something we're gonna have to make mention of in our city plan update next year, because we might have to lay some of that groundwork. So we'll be talking about it.
What are you hearing from more of the rural communities?
You're my first stop,
Oh, yeah.
so,
Took the easy one first.
yes. Your map will be much simpler than some of the others. You know, it's a mix, as you might expect. Some would be really scared of 50 units, and some would welcome it.
Any other questions? Catherine, final word?
The only thing I haven't mentioned yet is housing targets, but that'll probably be for another night. As part of our regional plan, we are required to do housing targets for each municipality in the region. We'll be given a regional target by the state, and we'll take that and divide it out among our municipalities. It's just a target. There's no stick that goes along with it. It's a tool to allow municipalities to understand how many new housing units would be needed in the region and their municipality in order to address our housing needs.
So target moving forward, or is there,
Yeah,
As of-
2030 and 2050. There'll be two different ones.
do we get past credit?
You know, you might, based on how the counting is done. It is definitely possible.
We would like some credit.
Yeah, okay. Thank you,
Great, and
Catherine.
I leave these, there's a 2-page summary of Act 181 and then a summary of the work we did for you last year.
Fees are going up,
What was that?
your fee is going up,
Our assessment? Yeah, I think about 3%. Yeah.
so we
So
have
where's
that.
it?
It's a bargain,
I know,
and we appreciate your
you
support.
need SIDC to it?
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna move on. I think planning commission's interested in item number 5, which is the first reading of the public nuisance property ordinance. Will you be, is that you, Chip, or Dom?
That's me.
Or Dom?
Okay, so for a couple of months now, we've been kicking around the idea of how do we take jurisdiction, how do we recognize that what is going on at a property sometimes goes beyond just the physical condition of the property, whether the windows are broken and whether they're complying with the fire safety regulations. But how do we get at the sometimes criminal behavior of the occupants? And what do you do when there's so much of that criminal behavior that the police department is regularly there and that by any reasonable measure, property has become public nuisance, a drain on the community. And this ordinance is an effort to address that situation. We can all think of properties in the city that meet that definition. And much of it builds on what we're already doing. We've long had 2 programs at play in the city. One is a public health and safety ordinance, which deals with typically outside conditions on the property, classic public health and safety matters such as raw sewage and buildings that are structurally unsafe. And that's also married with an existing building inspection program for rental properties in the city. And that focuses a little bit more on the inside of the property and code requirements. And both of those are done by the fire chief and his designees. And every apartment in the city is inspected, and if it meets the code, it gets a certificate of habitability. It's inspected every 4 years. So now that we're looking at addressing the criminal behavior of the occupants, it seems logical to build on that structure. And so most of what is in this packet is existing. So this is Title VII of the city's code. The title is Fire Protection and Prevention. And it's broken up into 9 chapters. Chapter 8, Public Nuisance Properties, is the bulk of the new language. But we've also added some requirements to the landlord registry program. So if you go to chapter 4, where the first new language is. On page 87, you should see underlined language, which is new. This is a draft that had come out earlier today that I circulated. You already have that draft. Okay. So, section 2103 is the registry information required. Residential unit owners must provide the following information to the code enforcement for property: the address, the number of dwelling units at that address, the number of bedrooms, the name, address, and phone number of the property owner. And what's new is a template of the lease used by the dwelling unit owner. All leases shall attach a copy of Chapter 8 of this ordinance relating to public nuisances and include the following language: attached to the public nuisance ordinance of the City of St. Albans, any actions by a tenant, guests, visitors, or others invited to or caused to come to the premises of this rental, even without invitation, thus resulting in it becoming a public nuisance, may be evicted from the rental upon a final determination that a public nuisance has occurred or is occurring. So this puts the tenants on notice that their lease requires them to be in compliance with the city's public nuisance property ordinance. So what does that mean? What is a public nuisance property? That is in Chapter 8. New. Begins on page 103. And with your permission, I'm just going to read it to be sure it all sinks in. Title is Public Nuisance Properties. Has 6 sections. Section 2205 cites the statutory authority for the city to adopt it. Section 2201 states the statement of findings and purpose. The St. Albans City Council finds and declares as follows. 1. Properties where police are repeatedly called for disorderly conduct, assault, larceny investigations, illicit drug use, noise, and disturbance of the peace may be public nuisances that threaten the public health, safety, and/or welfare. 2. Vermont law authorizes the city to define what constitutes a public nuisance and to provide procedures and take actions for its abatement or removal as the public health, safety, or welfare may require. 3. The City Council therefore finds that public nuisance properties as herein defined threaten the public health, safety, and/or welfare, and has developed this ordinance to take actions for the abatement and removal of the ordinance. Section 2202 is definitions, probably the most important section. Public nuisance property means a rental unit that has received 3 or more criminal citations within a 90-day period, or a civil violation of the city's fire protection and prevention ordinance, or a public health and safety ordinance. So you get 3 of those violations within 90 days. There's a carve-out for an act related to domestic violence against a tenant or occupant shall not qualify as a nuisance activity. Second definition ties back in with nuisance activity to section above. Section 3, the property owner means the person in whom is vested title. Section 4, a common definition of a person, any natural person, corporation, municipality, nonprofit, state of Vermont, etc. And adjoiners, an adjoining property owner without regard for divisions based on a public or private right of way. So, the neighbors, the people across the street. The procedure for addressing public nuisance properties. The fire chief or fire marshal shall serve as the city's enforcement officer. If the enforcement officer believes nuisance activities are occurring that can qualify the property as a PNP, public nuisance property, the officer shall notify in writing the property owner listed on the rental registry. If the enforcement officer believes the property has become a PNP, the officer shall notify the property and request a meeting to address the conditions that led to the determination. Such notification shall be in writing and shall delineate the specific conditions that the city seeks to be remediated. The meeting shall occur within 10 calendar days. The meeting, the enforcement officer and the property owner shall seek to develop a written nuisance abatement plan. Mutually agreeable plans agreed to, performance of the plan becomes part of the record. Nuisance abatement plan should be reasonable under the circumstances and structure to be implemented within 45 days. If a mutually agreeable plan is not agreed to, or if the property owner does not respond to the request for a meeting, the enforcement officer may refer the matter to the city council for a public nuisance property hearing. So here's where it could be coming to the comes back to the council now. The council shall hold a PNP hearing upon referral by the enforcement officer or by appeal of the property owner. The property owner, tenants, and adjoiners shall receive at least 14 days written notice of the hearing. Said notice shall delineate the specific nuisance activity in detail. The hearing shall be a quasi-judicial hearing. An enforcement officer, property owner, tenants, and adjoiners shall have an opportunity to be heard. May be represented by counsel and provide witnesses and experts as necessary. The city shall have the burden of proving the allegations by a preponderance of the evidence. Following the conclusion of the hearing, the city council shall issue a decision in writing. Council's decision may provide for any combination of the following. Order the property owner to perform necessary building or property repairs and maintenance, add additional lighting, add security cameras, add a security system, limit access to common areas, or issue no trespass notices as needed. Order the property owner to initiate eviction proceedings. Fine the property owner up to $800 per incident day for non-compliance with the conditions of the nuisance abatement plan and/or the city council decision. Council may utilize but is not limited to the following factors in making its determination as to the amount of the fine. The disturbance of neighbors, the recurrence of loud and obnoxious noises, actions or lack of actions taken by the property owner, whether the problem with the property was repeated or continuous, the magnitude or severity of the health hazards created at the property and its adverse impacts on the health and welfare of the residents, neighbors, and visitors. The cost of the city investigating, correcting, or attempting to correct the public nuisance, and any ongoing violations of the rental registry program or the public health and safety ordinance. Council can also declare the unit and/or property a public nuisance under Chapter 4, Title 7 of this ordinance, and direct the enforcement officer to revoke the certificate of habitability for the property under the rental registry program. Such revocation may be appealed to Superior Court pursuant to the Vermont Rules of Civil Procedure. When it finds that a violation has occurred, the City Council's decision may be enforced pursuant to the provisions of Title 24, Section 1974A. I'll note that that ability to revoke the certificate of habitability is not new language. That's been in there for the last 10 years since we've been running this program. And the ordinance will take effect upon passage. Any questions?
That's your story?
So this is the first reading of this.
Yes.
All right, so, I'm a little shocked, to tell you the truth, because I notified 7 major landlords of this ordinance and only one showed up. And that person probably didn't need to show up because he doesn't really have that many problems with his properties. But the other 6 should have showed up.
So did you have a meeting, did you say come and meet with me about it?
No, I just said come to the council because this is a major ordinance that we're putting forth tonight, or over the next few sessions. But anyway, having said that,
Who's, if you don't mind me asking, who's the one?
John
Oh,
Bloom,
oh,
yeah.
I thought you were on the planning commission, John, sorry about that.
So,
Want to join?
Just how many apartments, John, do you have?
In the city, 2 single families.
so we, Marie, Trudy, and I, and Dominic, when I first envisioned this ordinance, I must have gave you 60 pages of similar ordinances from other municipalities. And to have it condensed like this was an excellent job. But I do have some suggestions.
Sure.
On page 103, well, let me get to, well, no, I'll go with the nuisance properties or ordinance on chapter 8. I think 2201, paragraph 1, where the properties where the police are repeatedly called for disorderly conduct.
Yeah.
I don't think it may be a public nuisance. I think it should say, noise and disturbances of the peace are public nuisances. And not that they're made, they're just classified. I just think a judge is gonna look at that more favorably with us declaring that that is a public nuisance. But anyway. 2202, the definitions. A lot of the stuff that I had given was for a lot of things that we could classify as a nuisance. Put a lot of armor in our arsenal, but I understand that you thought it was overly broad, and you limited it on 2202.2. Nuisance activity means activities described in section 2202.1 of this ordinance. I think that shortchanges the ordinance, and I would recommend that not only do you have that, but you have and the chapter 4, section 5 under the rental registry program. Because if you look at chapter 4, section 5 of the rental registry, you name a significant amount of possible violations. And I think that those would have to be put in this as well. You might just want to take a look at that because, I mean, the registry named quite a few of them that I had, and I didn't know that the registry had actually put those in there like that. But after reading that, I said, wow, this is the type of stuff we wanted to have this ordinance about. You know, it named stuff like garbage in your yard and a number of other things, and you can read it. It's in the documentation that you have, the rental registry ordinance, chapter 4, section 5 names all of them. I think those should be recited either here individually or referred to here. If that's the case, then when the landlord gives chapter 8, they're going to also have to give the rental registry. If you don't list them out like that.
Yeah.
But be that as it may. The other thing is the chronic nuisance. And if somebody continues to, Dominic and I had a discussion about this, what is a chronic nuisance? And on page 106 at the top, number 4, I think that is a sufficient enough definition whether the problem at the property was repeated or continuous. When we make our determination at the hearing, like how many times has this person been here? And because when the person comes for a PNP hearing and it's their first time, we're certainly not going to say, start taking eviction actions. But if the person's been here 5 times for the similar problem, then I think that is part of the weight that we want to give the penalty to come in. I mean, I think, no doubt in my mind, up to $800 is quite a stick. That's a long way from $100 that I think I've read somewhere in either the ordinance or the charter, a past ordinance or the charter. So I think that alone is gonna get the attention of the landlord. And that's what we're trying to do here. Not so much the tenant, but the landlord, with the tenant having knowledge that that type of conduct could result in their eviction, which helps the landlord in the court process, because a tenant who's violating a statute or an ordinance, that's an evictable offense. So, and it's only and it's limited notice. You don't have to give 90 days notice or 60 days notice. I think it's 10 days notice. So it's a shorter notice period for the landlord to get that tenant out of there, get that property turned around with somebody in there that is going to be a productive tenant, if there is such a word. The other thing that I just wanted to, if anyone was questioning the importance of the rental registry, I am telling you right now that I think that if I were to say the number of attorneys is in this that do this type of law, and I'm one of them, this specific type of law, landlord-tenant law and real estate transactions, there's probably 2% that understand or know that this rental registry requires that it takes a certificate of habitability from the fire marshal, our local fire marshal, to sell that property. And amongst the attorneys in St. Albans, we all get this mostly as a matter of course. It's when the Chittenden County attorneys come into play and they say that that wasn't bargained for in the purchase and sale contract, and therefore we don't have to get it. And that's where we have a problem when I'm representing somebody who's gonna buy an apartment house, and I say, well, your folks need to get a certificate of habitability from the fire marshal. And they say, well, that's not part of the purchase and sale contract, we're not gonna do that. But now, with this, and you can bet your bottom dollar, I'll be sending out an email to a bunch of my colleagues in the morning, that this is already in force, that this is gonna make that a lot easier for us. To say to the outside of the municipality attorneys that, look, this is a violation, of ordinance violation if you don't get this, so you're gonna have to get it.
So you're saying this, you don't have to do the purchase, you don't have to include it in the purchase and sale
Right,
with this?
because the contract already covers any ordinance violations have to be, or state violations, permit violations have to be fixed before the contract date or the closing date. And this is now one that we can say, you can't barter a certificate of habitability, you have to have it. And I'm gonna tell you something, that's huge when someone is wanting to sell a $600,000 fourplex or a $500,000 triplex in the city, and they don't have the certificate of habitability. So they're gonna make sure, damn sure, that at the time that that contract is engaged, that they get to work on getting this type of certificate from the fire marshal. It happens a lot now, but that's amongst the local bar. When it's the statewide bar, they're saying it's not a bargain for exchange, and therefore we don't have to do it. But with this, it really helps out. And then using the language that Dominic, artfully put in there of requiring that public nuisance ordinance, that you get your certificate of habitability revoked when you violate the public nuisance ordinance. That's another huge stick. So two big things here that really can help out problematic properties. To me, they're beneficial to the landlord because a lot of times they'll come to me, and I do a lot of evictions, and I only represent landlords, I don't represent tenants. And they say, look, what can I do? My hands are tied, my hands are tied. Well, we don't have to have your hands tied anymore, because now your tenant is putting you in a predicament where you're gonna be in violation of an ordinance, and that's an evictable offense in the courtroom. So this really helps out. I know it sounds bad because of the $800 and the possible $800 fine, and then the penalty of having to start an eviction proceeding. But in the current posture of the court, the tenant, the landlord, and I don't have a problem saying this, the judiciary is treating the landlord as the enemy. And so now they have a little bit more to work with, and so I think this kind of helps out. And for the people that are just lounging and staying away and letting it go, that helps out. This helps us out. So it's not a one-sided. I've been hearing a lot, and I've had discussions with landlords, and I've had discussions with John. You know, and you guys know the other landlords that I represent, and I've said, look, this isn't a bad thing, but it's going to make you pay attention to your properties.
Yeah.
And you're gonna have to pay attention to what's going on with the properties, and you're gonna have to put some skin in the game when you're taking $1,800 in from the state of Vermont, and you've got someone in there that you don't care about, and all you care about is the money coming in, and they're destroying the community or the neighboring properties. So,
Well,
This isn't gonna affect good landlords.
no, not at all. Not in the least is it gonna. And not only that, but I talked to Jim Levy. Because he was concerned about whether there was going to be fees for this types of thing, but it's not. And it's not going to put any more pressure on the landlord. And when you get done talking to them, most of them agree with it. The ones that are the problematic ones that we're having the problems with right now,
The one pushing.
yeah, are going to be they'll probably be here the next meeting.
I think the key to that is up to $800 as well.
Yeah,
Up to.
up to $800. Yeah. I mean, no one's, and no, you know, don't second guess this. I mean, nobody's saying that, and that's why we had all agreed that, look, we may assess you $800, but if you come in and you're showing us that you're fixing the problems, that $800 goes away. Sit at home and do nothing and say, you know, and flip us the bird. Have fun paying the $800. You know, but I mean, someone who's actually going to go out and affirmatively try and fix these properties and take care of the tenants that are in there, they've got nothing to worry about. Nothing to worry about.
won't this also, so one of the concerns that I've had and that we've talked about is people who are, you know, get their rent paid for them. Some of these landlords, like you said, just take the money, and people are living in terrible, terrible conditions. And this will also give those landlords an incentive to make their properties habitable, more than the state's criteria.
Yeah.
Because it's our criteria.
Yeah, a lot can happen in 4 years. The good thing about some of the stuff that Dominic put in there is, we're not limited to 4 years. Matt can go in and do an inspection every year if he thought that there was a need for it. You know, maybe someone's in violation so many times that now he has to say, look, I gotta go in here, you know, once a year for the next, or we say, we want an inspection over as part of their abatement plan, that we want to have the fire marshal inspected every year.
So
for the next 4 years.
Can you quickly, just because when you did this before, so say I'm a landlord, I'm not, but if I was, I'm a landlord, I have a tenant who's dealing drugs, and I didn't vet them very well, or maybe I did, but their friends are in there, and they're constantly, there's traffic, and pretty sure what's going on, so I'm trying to evict them, but I'm having a hard time. So how does this help, that landlord and the other people in the property? Like how would that roll out? So I'm trying as a landlord, but there's this drug dealer that is renting from me, and I can't get them out.
You don't have cause yet. This is what Tim was just talking about, right? Because, you know, it's hard to prove that they're drug dealing and not just selling granola bars, you know? But if what's going on there is, the police department has been there 5 times in the last 2 months for a fight. And somebody who shoplifted from one of our local stores was ultimately arrested living there. And the police department recovered somebody else who was, there was a warrant to pick out for their arrest. That's how you build the preponderance of the evidence, right? You know, all of this is going on there.
And those are measurable things.
Those are citations, yeah. That's not just me driving by and saying, I don't like the look of the people hanging out on the porch. That's observable, documentable things that have occurred that are way out of the norm. You know, everybody has the right to call the police department. But when the police department is there so much more than any place else, that's an indicator that you've crossed over. But you might not have that in your lease. You might not have a lease requirement that says if you've fallen in violation of the city's public nuisance property ordinance, that's cause for eviction. But now, in order to get your certificate of habitability, your lease is gonna have to have that in there. And so,
And what if the landlord is trying to get the tenant out?
then I'm gonna call the landlord in front of you, and the staff are gonna, or Matt's gonna, and we're gonna say, we think it's a public nuisance property, and we're gonna ask for this type of relief. And we're gonna have a little trial, right? And a little hearing, and the property owner's gonna come in and say, these are all the things that I'm trying to evict them. These are all the things I'm trying to do to improve the situation. And you're gonna evaluate it and give it the weight you think you deserve. And if you make a decision and it doesn't improve in 45 days, they might be right back in here.
But was your question, what if they're already trying to get them out? If they're
If they're already in that, which I hear is a long process and costly.
Yeah, it is. Then those are, I would say, our ruling is evaded while they're trying to get them out, because they're trying to do something affirmatively to get those people out of there.
Addressing the problem.
Right, that's exactly right. And you know, because we were, us, Chad, you and myself were on the joint police board. Those officers now know that when they go there, that it could be something that they won't have to go there again if it keeps happening, because they're gonna be out of there. So it's kind of like, you know, they have some incentive now, rather than, and I'm not saying they didn't have incentive before, but you know, yeah, I go there, we've been there 15 times, you know, what else can we do? Well, now, if you've been there 3 times in 90 days, there's something we can do. And that's what I think is a positive effect for those guys.
Three times in 90 days, like, is that seems like a lot.
You mean a long time?
No, I just like 2 times.
Oh.
I just wonder if that number, like, I know we all like the number 3. I mean, it's something we could revisit it down the road.
Yeah.
Somebody's probably gonna be three
Well,
times a
honestly,
week.
when we got the spreadsheet from the PD about the properties,
Yeah.
it's probably fine.
Well, don't forget, we've got to be able to defend what we've done in that courtroom. And so that judge is gonna be looking at a couple of things. A, did that landlord get due process? And B, what about the tenants? And were they notified that this type of conduct was gonna be an evictable offense? That's why we need, not all leases, I mean, I have landlords that come in and I say, let me see, look a copy of your lease, and it's something they got off the internet, and it doesn't even pertain to half the things that should be in there. But now, the tenant is gonna know, hey, wow, you know, this is part of my lease. Either they know or they should have known, because the court will say, look, did you get a copy of the lease? Yeah, well, was section 8 of the city ordinance in there? Yep. Well, then you knew that this was an evictable offense, so you shouldn't be surprised here today. That's the way the conversation needs to go, not have the landlord, the tenant go up there and say, oh, you know, I'm getting evicted from my property. I didn't know that, you know, having all my friends there swearing at the people across the street while we're drinking was an evictable offense. You know, now you know that.
And
Couple things, we talked about police enforcement, if the street crimes unit does a raid, right, that should be.
Yeah, that's
that
one
would
of
be one of the
That
3.
should be one of them, but I don't know if that should be laid out. And the other thing is how, you're just going by, you're just hoping that landlords will put that language in their lease.
No,
they're required.
But how are you gonna pursue it and follow up?
They have to be on the registry, and the registry requires that that be in there.
So there's gonna be a.
Right.
There's gonna be a period of lull
Yep.
there until that.
Yep, how often, every so often I have to come in and be on the registry because I'm a landlord. And a part of being on the registry requires that I have that either in my lease or I attach a copy of it to my lease. So, I mean, I can see the landlord saying, well, wait a minute, I've got a lease now that's 3 years and I'm in the first year of it and now you're trying to make me change it? No, because we're not gonna make you change the lease because they can't do that. But we can also give to them a section, chapter 8, and say, give this to your clients, or give this to your tenants so they understand this is part of the lease.
Are landlords notified when there's an issue and the police have to go to their property for a disturbance? So that's like, they're not though.
Yeah, they're
But
not.
so that, for me, if I'm a landlord, that's like a missing piece, because if, you know, you could have a property and someone could be there, the police could be there 2 times and you could not even know. That was my one question. I don't know if there's a way to,
Well, this gets at some of that, you know, when we send
the
out,
notification.
look, we think you might be a PNP here, right? Come in and talk
So
about it.
you
Make a plan.
would let the landlord know.
Yeah, we have to, that's right in there. We
Okay.
would say, look, there's evidence that says that you're starting down the wrong road here. Come in and let's
But
make a
to
plan.
Trudy's point, I think Trudy's saying someone has to track those calls.
Yeah.
Who in City Hall is gonna say, okay, 9 Rublies had 4 calls in the last 60 days, let's call the landlord.
Who lets Maddie know?
That's what Matt and I will work out is, you know, like,
So police need to coordinate with Matt on,
Matt and I will be the drivers. I mean, the police department's got enough on their plate without
That's just a
tracking
little
down the
detail, I think,
landlord,
we
you
need
know.
to-
And so, look, if a landlord comes in and says, I have absolutely no idea that this is going on, I'll take steps to make sure it doesn't happen. That's huge, right? But that's not what we have going on here. I mean, let's be honest. Most of our problematic properties are owned by a handful of individuals who we all have their cell phone numbers, and they drive by every day, and they know exactly what's going on.
I don't have any numbers, just so you know. Don't worry.
But it is important that everybody is, if we
You
sit.
brought up something earlier today in the earlier meeting, and that was talking about across the street, a young couple going up there and having to step over people that were passed out on.
Yeah.
Under this, that's probably an offense.
But do you take a picture of it and send it to?
Yeah, no, I mean, we gotta rely on the general public
Right.
to say, look, we know who the big people are.
Mhm.
You know, six properties are 90% of the calls. But it's up to and there's probably landlords that we don't even know are landlords. You know what I mean? There's landlords out there that aren't part of the registry now. But it's gonna take me living next to somebody calling up either the city hall or the police saying, hey, I got a problem next door, these guys are drinking and swearing and we can't get to sleep. Or there's constant drug deals going on and I'm finding needles on my yard. Or, you know, there is garbage all over the yard over there and skunks and raccoons are coming over. Or, you know, a number of things. They're playing loud music at 12 o'clock at night, or a number of things. Once the police have to get involved, that's one of the 3 for the 90 days.
But if those people weren't tenants,
What if they just live there?
that, you know, if they were just vagrants, then is that a hit on the landlord? Probably not, as I read this.
They'd have to be,
But
they'd
imagine-
have to be tenants.
But did the landlord issue trespassing it? No trespassing.
Absolutely.
Did they not do anything? That's.
And you can't tell me that you're gonna own property in the city of St. Albans and you don't know what's going on with it. So I'm not buying it that the police go to a place and the landlord is clueless of it. You know,
no, I mean,
no way. The landlord knows, these landlords know what's going on.
I'm gonna disagree with that. The one next to me, I informed him when the police are, he
And
doesn't.
especially if they're out of state.
Well, that's-
landlords.
Well, too bad. So you're a landlord out of state, then get someone to manage the property.
This can get at a lot of things. Our
It's gonna get out of a lot of
Our
things. no?
tenants' rights group's gonna,
Well, and that's what I was
the
gonna ask. What,
ACLU, or people are gonna be like, oh, no, you can't do this.
and that was my primary question. The only question I had was like, can a landlord that wants to get rid of someone that does pay their rent, they just want to renew the place, they want to renovate it, whatever it is, they've been living there for years, can they use this in any way to like start calling the cops saying noisy, like kind of use it against a
Well,
tenant.
they would have to have evidence that what they're doing is a nuisance. And what would that be? I mean,
That's what I want to check.
It all points back to this body. All of this is forcing problematic landlords first to meet with staff and develop a plan, and if they don't take action, to then come before this body, and we have this whole conversation with them.
That's
Which
20,
is which is what we really need.
they'll probably never get here. They're probably gonna be taken care of at the administrative level.
yeah, 2203, that's what it says. So basically, Maddie, if there's a problem, however it decides to get tracked, Maddie and you
Yeah.
call the landlord in, and you try to make a plan
Yeah.
that doesn't involve this board.
And
Like
I'll
what the
bet you
principal's
90% of
office.
the time, that's where it starts.
And so that's the notification.
Yeah.
If they're out of state, or if they live somewhere else, okay, there's no problem with that. But that's where they will be notified.
One of the levers, you know, I mean, I enjoy my time with y'all, but not everybody wants to come in every month and be hauled before this board and have to, you know, talk about having your dirty laundry aired, right? And then it makes it harder
Stop.
for you to rent that property in the future.
Is 10 days good enough? Like, is that for response time? So like.
Yeah,
conflict
yeah,
or
yeah,
stuff?
absolutely. I wouldn't want to give them any more.
Okay, does anyone have any other questions on this? Joel? Eric, questions? Trudy? Planning Commission, you've been patient, waiting for this highlight of the night. Anyone have any comments? John, do you have any comments? Do you see any pitfalls, John?
Not me personally.
Mr. Hawkins did a good job tutoring you. Good call.
You mentioned you got the language from other municipalities. Is this being done in Vermont and other places?
No, I just looked at a number of other public nuisance ordinances in different municipalities, just to get myself familiar.
Not in
This was
Vermont.
months ago, maybe even last year.
Do you know of any places in Vermont that are doing this, or is this, I'm just curious.
Burlington does a little bit of this, but we're breaking some new ground.
Yeah, I think Brattleboro may be doing something too, so, I'm not sure. Or, yeah, Brattleboro.
I'm a renter here in St. Albans. I love it. I love this. My only comment would be, I heard a lot of conversation around like number one, and could this be used in any way? I just be careful of the language change, the noise, for example. I know there's a lot of ways to mitigate the issue. My walls are paper thin, I can hear my neighbor cough. And I know that when I first moved in, I had a little one, and like the walking was a nuisance. Luckily, I have great neighbors, but if I had a neighbor who consistently called for little things like that, just that automatic trigger, maybe it's when the police substantiate the issue or something of that language in there. That would be my only.
Citation has to be issued, right?
No, there's nothing in it that says a citation has to be issued.
Yeah, but that's a good point though, because sometimes, you know, what if I'm hard of hearing and I have my TV up too loud and my walls are paper thin?
And I wear hearing aids, so I am hard of hearing.
Hey, well,
I mean, as with anything, there's gonna be some common sense.
yeah,
I think when I first started, there was a lady that would
yeah.
complain to Maddie like 19 times because the neighbor was having a legal fire out back and she thought the smoke was blah, blah, blah. I think there's gotta be, I mean, I guess I trust Maddie with that, but I think it just can't be a crazy neighbor calling over frivolous stuff.
Right. And like even garbage in the yard, like how much garbage? Like,
Nobody
I-
gets
well-
ordered to do anything without this board. You know,
Mhm.
Matt and I can tell them how to resolve it in a plan, but if they don't like it, they can come to you. And if they don't respond, it comes to you right away, you know, so.
I think we have to try it and just see how it goes. I mean, I think we had to do something.
We had to, I mean,
We
the
had to
public
do
was
something.
up in arms. They are now.
And the business owners who have businesses next to nuisance properties that people don't wanna go to, so I think. And the people that are really great people that are living next to nuisance tenants, and this only applies to a unit. I think did you mention that? Like, it's not the whole, like if I own 5 units, if it's one unit, that's the problem. That's the unit that is the target, not the whole entire building.
You have the discretion to apply it to the unit of the building. I think it depends on the fact pattern that you're observing,
Yes.
right? You know, the standard is preponderance of the evidence, and if that evidence trail encapsulates the whole building, then that might be the order, right? But if it's one unit, that's always the problem. You know, and you can't always tell which unit it's coming out of, right? So, you know, the definition of a program like this requires that we vest some discretion with this board to hear the evidence and then to make a decision.
I noticed Burlington, it was Burlington, I had to check it, Burlington, Rutland, Brattleboro, and UC have similar property ordinances, and I was wondering about their efficacy in their programs, like, kind of, what, like, I'd like to see, like, how effective it's been. I think it's a great idea, I just wanna understand it.
Okay.
Okay, any other comments? Hearing none, thank you, Tim, Trudy, and Marie for working on this, appreciate that.
The city
Planning
manager for
Commission?
putting it together.
Yes.
Thanks. Planning Commission, thanks for joining us. Feel free to stick around for another half hour if you want.
Topping out.
Thank you all, appreciate it. All right, we're moving on to item number 6, which is a request to reduce the size of the Historic Preservation Commission. And Mr. Chip Sawyer will be talking. Johnny, thanks for coming in.
Is this Joe Little's board?
Yeah,
Hey, Ray, let me grab you up.
I wonder if that's probably very good, couldn't,
Go ahead.
can't remember left.
Chip, go ahead.
we've had 3 members of the HPC leave for various reasons, mostly because their jobs have changed or they've moved out of the community. It's a 7-member board, which means the quorum is 4, and now we actually have only 4 sitting members. So, and we've done this in the past for other boards, but I'm requesting that the city council, by majority vote, reduce the size of the HPC to 5. That reduces our quorum to 3. We're much easier going to hit that for any given meeting with our 4 members. We're recruiting for a bunch of boards right now, and we're scheduling the city council chats. And after the beginning of the year, we'll start recruiting for the HPC again to fill it back up. And if we get enough candidates, then at any time, the city council could vote to increase the size of the board again.
That makes sense.
Do you need a motion?
Yeah, to change the size of the board requires a motion of the city council.
Can I make it now?
Make a motion, we'll take any comments.
I'll make a motion to reduce the size of the Historic Preservation Commission to 5
I'll
seats.
second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments from the council? Any comments from public? How about you, miss, in the back? Do you have any comments on this?
Not at the moment,
Not at the
thank you,
moment,
Mr.
okay.
Mayor.
Get back to us if you do. All right, motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Chip. Now we have the first reading on ordinance amendment for parking on Stebbins Street.
For a while, we've been talking about how Stebbins Street is a little too narrow to accommodate parking on both sides of the street, and also some of the truck traffic that it gets. It's one of the best ways to access Main Street for a truck because of the turning radius at the top. And in fact, you, Mr. Mayor, have been asking about when this change is going to be made. The Public Works has put up the signs, as we said they would, of no parking on the south side, and we need to make a little change to the ordinance to make sure our rules reflect that as well. It turns out parking never really was allowed on the south side of Stebbins Street in the ordinance.
Did you say it never was?
It never really was. It wasn't allowed any east of the building that used to be the Fonda building and then became the one that Troy and Mary Ellen bought.
Yeah, it's the ballet school right now.
Yeah, it's a ballet school now. So in the end, all we did was we struck out some language to make it read now that parking is not allowed on the entire southerly side of Stebbins Street.
How many did we take out? Troy called me and left a message. He said he lost 10 parking spots. There wasn't that many there, was there? Were there?
We might have lost 10 parking spots along the entire street.
Okay.
But it turns out many of those weren't supposed to exist anyway.
So that impacts the ballet.
No, I'm gonna say no.
No, they got a lot of parking, they still have a lot of parking there.
I'm in and out there almost every night, and
Yeah.
the parking lot is half full, if that.
Even with their tenants.
And well, the tenants park on the backside of the building,
Oh,
so
okay.
it's not even related. I think 10 might even be high. 10.
Yeah, I thought that was a lot. I tried to call him back, I left him a message, but he didn't get back in touch with me.
Yeah,
Okay.
is this sort of our unofficial truck route?
At the moment, yes.
It is
Remember, this
all
is-
the time.
This
all
is
the
why we told trucks they can't turn right onto Catherine, because they would clip the Giroux building, and we want them to turn onto Market Street, which would then have them going up 7th Street. Yeah, we don't want them turning at the top of Lake Street either. It's a tough turn to
Well, they
make.
still do, but,
Right.
so,
Right.
okay,
This is just the first reading.
first reading, yes, no,
I don't have any changes. Does anyone have any changes?
Looks good to me.
All right,
okay, we'll move.
thank you.
Thank you, Chip, appreciate it. We'll move to item number 8, which is downtown business development grants. Turn it to you.
There's a memo in your packet with 3 proposed business development grants that we discussed previously. I look for a motion either as a slate or as individuals.
Is there a motion on the A, B, and C on this?
For purposes of discussion, I'll make the motion that we approve individually.
You want to do it in a minute, okay. So,
Yeah, I'll make a motion, we approve the $45,000 grant to Food City.
okay, is there a second?
Is it 45 or
Sorry.
60?
40,000. Thank
So we
you.
have a motion from Tim,
I'll
seconded by Chad. Any comments? Discussion? As we know, this is for upgrading or improving their refrigeration system.
And I would add that there would be some language inserted that says that this equipment that is being funded by the city become a fixture to the building. And that it can't be removed from the building in the event that the lessor or landlord leaves the building.
And he did tell us that he just barely renewed with the owner of the building, correct?
Just additional info, Efficiency Vermont came to the table with 45,000 as well, so. And I would add to Tim's comments that we have him back in, have Zach back in to give us an update on how business is progressing with the changes in that region.
Agreed.
Any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, motion passes.
I'll move that we recommend that $10,000 be given to Spotlight Vintage for their flooring and outdoor signage.
I second that.
Motion from Tim, seconded by Chad. Any comments, questions?
Since that rental hasn't been secured or has it, do we wanna make sure there's language that says if rental secured on that address?
Yeah, I think it was pending this action, but
Okay.
Any other comments on this? Hearing none, all those in favor of the allocation for Spotlight Vintage, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. We'll move on to item number C, which is Red House Suites.
I'll make a motion that we approve $5,000 towards a new stove for Red House Suites on Lake Street.
I'll second it.
Any comments or questions? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. We'll move on to item number 9, which is consider approval of water and sewer allocations. We have 3 on the agenda, 204 Swanton Road, 135-37 Lake Street, and 2601 Highgate Road, the state of Vermont, new garage.
I'll recuse myself from 204 Swanton Road as I represent Mr. Hanlon.
Okay, is there a motion? We'll do one at a time, if they're all individual, so. So we'll start with 204 Swanton Road.
Make a motion to approve water and sewer allocations for Swanton Road.
Second.
Any comments or questions? I don't know the process, maybe Tim does, but I thought the process entails a lot of water use. In terms of growing and whatnot, like.
Neither do I, but he talked to the city, and so the city is what said that this is the allocation that you need to have, so.
He's from New Hampshire?
No,
It says his applicants.
yeah.
Oh, that's the realty place. Where is this? Where exactly?
This is Abishon.
Sean,
Oh, okay.
The old Abishon building, out by the north end of the city.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
okay, we do have a motion and a second. Thanks.
I'll second. Oh, I think
Oh, you're good.
you did.
Okay,
I had the first second.
okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Moving on to 135 and 137 Lake Street, which is the former Red Top.
I'll make a motion to approve the allocation for 135, 137 Lake Street.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions on this?
I do.
Any comments?
I have, this kind of caught me by surprise, because this is for the student, or the student,
Spectrum.
yeah, the Spectrum building, but it's for not special needs. Youth, right, youth shelter.
18 to
And
24.
10 sleeping spaces.
is that zoned? I mean, I don't know it would be in, I did check the zoning rules and regulations, but I don't think it would be here on our agenda if it wasn't zoned for that.
It falls under the definition of homeless shelter, and they've applied from that, from the DRB, that decision is forthcoming.
Now, was that a conditional use, or is that a permitted use?
It was a conditional use, that's why they went before the DRB.
Okay.
Some conditions were suggested at the hearing, such as that if it ever serves the population that aren't within that age group, or I believe changes their hours or something like that, they'd have to go back before the DRB.
Can you share, like, what will be the rules and parameters around the people that will stay there besides the ages? Like, is it a low barrier, anything goes? Is it, and you might not know that.
It's a little different with this age group than a low barrier adult shelter and a low barrier,
18
I
to
think a lot of
24
you-
years old.
I know, what we do know is that, and based on what they said, Spectrum has a pretty good reputation for doing this. They have a shelter in Burlington as well that does this very thing. They are going to have it staffed all night long. The hours, or if I remember correctly, the hours seemed like it would capture when the youth would be showing up in the late afternoon or early evening, and when they would want to leave in the morning. And then it's not open during the day, it's only open during the nighttime.
Tim's house used to be like that. Oh, yeah.
I've been the executive director, I'm sure would love to pop in and answer the questions,
Like, I'm assuming, yeah, there's a lot to consider when, another shelter, right? Like, I'm always curious of the rules and expectations for people that are staying there,
yeah.
to make sure that everyone there feels safe and comfortable.
No, I hear you. Just process-wise.
Well, I wouldn't want to second guess the DRB. I'm sure they vetted it out well, and they had public input. So I wouldn't want to have Evan have to come in here and explain himself again to us when he's already done it with the DRB.
There's a chance they will be coming before the council for some HUD grant money associated with continuing to operate the center, so you'll have a chance. That was a hearing, if you remember correctly, that we were going to hold, but it got canceled because they had to push their application out. So I think you're actually gonna have a chance to have them come in and discuss the center within the next few months.
What's the timing on the DRB decision?
I think it'll be out before the end of November. I can check with Sarah.
And is the moving forward contingent on the HUD grant?
No, they have enough money to get started.
I'd like to amend the motion and make a motion to approve 135, 137 Lake Street, wastewater allocation application pending approval of the DRB. Who seconded that?
I'll second.
Okay.
We have an amended motion on the floor. Tim, seconded by Marie. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. We're going to move on to number C, or item C on 9, which is water allocation for the state of Vermont, 2601 Highgate Road. That would be their new state garage.
This is the same garage as located in Lower Newton, right?
No, this is.
The new one.
No, I know that one.
Oh,
The old
yeah.
one.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yes.
What was their water usage down there, and is this gonna be an expansion on that, or is this, do we know what the previous water usage was?
It's probably an expansion, but
Probably, okay.
Could-
Just curious.
4 years, not very much, right?
yeah, I mean, depending on the efficiency of the new system, it could be less, you know.
Well, I know they I mentioned Brian in here for the mixing Brian solution.
Does this extend out for like future development
And
to the towns?
D's.
It has that potential, yeah, but right now, we're just approving the capacity.
Where I get confused is, haven't they already run the line? I mean, ECI was up there for a long period of time, coring. I thought they were running the line up there. I mean, they've gone a long way down the road with no water. If we don't improve the allocation.
Yeah, the new road just went into.
Yeah, I mean, they're there, the trucks are there, I just drove by there today.
Maybe it's more allocation, I honestly don't know.
Where's Mr. Main? Oh, he's out of town, right?
He said, I mean, his letter says it has ample supply. I'll just copy it, right? Is that what that
It's
was?
unbuilt, yeah.
Well, I think that's, we have it.
So this.
I just have questions about this sort of going off on a tangent that I think the water's up there and then you have National Guard who potentially could be coming there. Did we not have to approve the pipeline going up? Was there a discussion on that? I guess that's where
It depends on what they're connecting to and who owns what they're connecting to. Why don't we get Marty in to talk about that?
Do we wanna hold off on this one, or are we gonna go with it?
I think it's pretty far down the road.
Yeah, I don't think so.
We'll make a deal with them that they don't stripe High Street.
And they'll pick up the garbage at the
And
parking
pick up- yeah,
lot, please.
Pick up
Please.
garbage at the parking lot, yeah.
Remark the parking spots on Main Street.
Then you can get your water.
Motion to approve water allocation 2601 Highgate Road, state of Vermont.
Is there a second? Second by Eric. Motion by Tim, second by Eric. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to item number 10. That's where Sarah has patiently waited for us to get to.
Bumped her up.
No, I've been busy.
We took a turn the heat on for you.
I'm okay.
Just put her vortex in her skin.
I know. I'm just like envisioning skiing. So.
So you have,
It kind of is, yeah. I've been wearing all that. I've got a couple items for you this evening. The first on the list is to consider the approval of a loan agreement for feasibility and planning to rehab the original Aldous Hill water tank now that the new one is built. This is a loan application we put together back in February. It's been approved. It's now awaiting council signature to go back and get the money rolling. It's for $22,900.
Will that be paid out of enterprise?
This will be paid out of the water fund, yes.
And it's on 22.5, and what's the timing on that study? And, you know,
22,900 and preliminary work has begun, looking at the old tank and what we could possibly do with it.
so it's like the state of Vermont water pipe.
The debt will be serviced by allocation fees from your allocations.
Well, it's a little bit different because you guys
State of
approved the
Vermont.
application in February.
Okay, fairly straightforward for those update. We built a new water tank with the hope that we would be able to refurbish the old one in hopes that we would have some repetition in our, right?
Redundancy in our system.
Supply.
Yeah, for future growth in outlying areas.
So there's no guarantee that, so there's no guarantee there's gonna be, it can be repaired, right? We're
No
gonna,
guarantee, yeah.
not yet. Good.
State of Vermont's giving us planning money to study the feasibility of it. That it's effectively free money that just gets rolled into the new project.
On top of the 22,
Yeah.
so the study's more than 22.
Well, the 22 is for the study, but the project will then come back.
Will the park, was hiking, saw the parking lot assigned to Albans Hill. Is that eventually going to be where we try to get people to park when they're hiking?
Yes,
Yeah,
part of the issue, and I think where it stands
because it's
now,
still, it's coned off, like no one can get in there.
I think we had it open, and I think Marty shut it down because it had a very early issue with someone sleeping in the car up there. And until we sign it, and so I'm not sure what the status of those
Oh, I
signs
see.
are.
Yeah,
But
right on there.
when it does get signed, it will be opened up, from my understanding.
Okay.
I think the sign says, go to the parking ride, see Trudy if you have questions.
She'll pick up garbage.
Call Trudy at.
Okay.
So,
So
entertain a
far.
motion on this, moving forward with this loan for the water tanks?
Move to approve loan agreement, RF 3571-1, feasibility and planning for the Aldous Hill water tank.
Thank you, Tim. Is there a
Second.
Second by Trudy. And you'll need some signatures. Right. So, any other questions for Sarah? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. That was A on number 10. We're now moving to B, which is renew loan 73033 and purchase of the Wellman Theater.
Thank you. So in December of 2022, the city issued short-term debt to purchase the Weldon Theater and 86 North Main Street. Since that time, the 86 North Main Street portion has been transitioned over to that final $11.4 million TIF bond, and that leaves the purchase of the Weldon Theater sitting under some short-term debt, $924,480.
I'm with you, Sarah, keep going.
Keep going.
Yeah.
I always want to know what the joke is.
Renew, motion to
I
renew the
think you
loan.
added an H to your signature.
Shit, oh, I did, me
You can review the recording later.
And the child is
At
one.
least Trudy and I heard it.
I teach third grade, it's my life,
So
right?
that-
too. Fine. I'm looking to
Can we
renew.
eliminate that from the minutes?
Thanks, Archie.
Motion to approve the loan,
Second.
75033 for the Weldon Theater.
Motion from Tim, seconded by Chad. Any questions for Sarah on this? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The second one up for renewal is our $2 million short-term revenue anticipation note. We use this short-term debt for tax anticipation, grant anticipation, and other sources of revenue. It is fully drawn right now as we're in the early stages of the budget year. A lot of our debt has gone out the door, so we have the full $2 million drawn currently. This expires in December, and I'm looking to have it renewed for another year so we can continue to use it for its stated purposes.
Motion to renew loan 75574, 2 million anticipation note.
Second.
Motion second on the short-term note. Any comments, questions for Sarah? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. And lastly, we have application for drinking water loan.
Yes, so as part of the FY25 enterprise fund budgets, we included an asset management plan in the water fund, and this was $151,000. There's a $50,000 forgiveness piece through the state of Vermont, and with the help of Aldrich and Elliott, we've completed the application to apply for that $151,000 less the $50,000 forgivable piece, and I'm looking for your approval and signature. That's not the right one, because that one already has signatures. Your approval and your signature on this one to submit this application.
I'll make a motion to approve the application for drinking water loan.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Trudy, seconded by Marie. Any questions for Sarah? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Anyone opposed? Motion passes. So you have, I believe you have 2 forms for us to sign?
I do, I'll pass them around. I have 3 spots for everyone to sign, and then a few more for you, Tim, and I'll grab you at the end.
Thank you. We have to double up on some of these.
Yeah.
I make a motion, we keep moving.
I want to distract you. Right, so next on the agenda is the mayor's report. For me, two things. What, did we miss the opportunity to visit Grant's Lake Street property? Sort of trying to coordinate that.
Not an irrevocable opportunity, it's just it needs to be finished up, right, so.
I did it wrong.
I don't get that.
I actually brought that up during the when I was on the DAB,
Yeah.
because I didn't like the color either.
Yeah, the yellow, I thought it's like it's hanging over the railing.
It felt like it did fit, but it felt like more of a Cape Cod fit.
I don't understand, first of all, the purpose of those blocks over the balcony, that one side of the balcony. And maybe the yellow is because it's a safety color.
No, they explained it was an aesthetic. They're trying to go for a newer, a lot more shifted design style. I was one of the minority voices on the DAB at the time on that one.
I think those attempts fail quite often. You know, to go more modern.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Yeah.
So Running on the Bell's coming up, Festival of Trees coming up. I think they're doing casino night on December 6th. It'd be nice to get a good turnout from the community. You working on it? And then the tree lighting, trees look great, by the way. Is that First Response, I think, did it again. Great job on their part. And the tree lighting is Saturday the 30th, I believe, in Taylor Park. So,
Tim, how did Veterans Day go? I wasn't here.
Veterans Day was probably one of the better ceremonies, very timely. I thought Bernie Sanders was here, they had good representation, the students did a great job on their speeches. I think it was very well received. Parade was a little bit bigger, so I think they're making headway. So the weather held off, so I think it went off pretty well. So, let's start. Newell, what do you got?
A question for you. Federal Street, you see they did some paving there, like a parking lot, is that what it's supposed to be?
It's the
Brownfield?
Brownfield.
What's that?
All the way down.
Oh,
That's a site that the city bought as a redevelopment project, and Usually we wait on doing the cleanup until we're sure what the use is, but
Yeah.
in this case, the clock was ticking on using the funds, and so we had to complete the brownfield work and pave it, and then we'll market the site from there.
Oh, okay,
So I think it makes it an easier site to market, honestly.
okay. Just was curious.
Anything else?
That's it.
Marie?
Jotted down a couple of things here. The lighting over at Houghton Park is fantastic. It's like daylight over there at night. So I think that was a big improvement. Also, I'm trying to decide when to have another neighborhood watch meeting. With the holidays and stuff. It's kind of hard, but, we have a couple of people actually from your ward
Oh, really?
that wanna come to
Yeah?
our meeting. So
Will I be there?
that's up to you.
Where,
But
where do you have it?
I usually have it at my house.
At your house?
Yeah,
Okay.
but,
You serve a meal and everything wherever?
oh, yeah. turkey
Oh,
dinner.
okay, thanks, I'll be there.
Yeah.
Newell
So-
loves his snacks.
I just,
Newell's just coming for the food.
you know.
But anyway, I'm gonna try to get that together hopefully in the next couple of weeks, to have a meeting or get something together. But I don't know if anybody else is interested in setting up one in your own wards, but, Trudy and I have had, you know, well, I've had several and Trudy's had, what, one or two. And, you know, we'd be happy to, you know,
Show you
to
the
start
ropes.
it or, yeah, this is pretty simple.
Mr. Mayor, I want to compliment these two young ladies doing an excellent job on this public service.
Thank you.
Thanks, Newell.
Next time, bring cookies, okay?
I told you, I'm the one, I work all day. You can bring cookies.
Also, something was mentioned to me, and I think it's kind of a nice idea, and I'd like to find out more about it, but, went to Swanton and saw all the flags in their park for, Veterans Day. That was really, really nice, and apparently what they do is, I don't know if they sell the flags or what, in memory of a serviceman or whatever, but I don't know if we would want to anticipate doing anything like that here next year for Veterans Day or even Memorial Day. But I just thought it was a nice touch, and it was very showy, very impressive. So I'm just kind of throwing that out there for a suggestion possibly. And I guess that's about all I have. North Elm's been pretty good. Usual problem of speeding in the middle of the night, but I guess that's happening in a lot of neighborhoods, so, anyway, but everything else seems pretty good right now, so,
Thanks, Marie.
yeah.
Chad?
Yeah, Marie just reminded me one. I think before Memorial Day, we shouldn't forget about the gentleman that came in and talked about the names that were missing from that monument. I think we should probably figure something out.
Can I comment on that?
Yeah.
So from what I've been told, Stewart's made a call the next day and said they would cover the cost.
Oh, awesome.
Oh, yeah,
That's
great.
I don't know where Zach is on moving that forward. The part of raising money, from my understanding, has been covered.
And he knows that.
I emailed him, but he never responded.
The only other thing I have is
No, right there.
the Elks Lodge got a grant from Martha's Kitchen. They increased from 500 to 2,000, and so it has to be used where I email or I get an email from Martha's Kitchen once a week. We order food or plates or whatever they need until the 2,000's used up. We're about halfway there. It's got to be used by the end of November.
That's great.
Yeah.
So they better use it or lose it, right?
Yeah. Bob sometimes is a little. He doesn't like to be overwhelmed with stuff. So I have
So
to.
Tim, I mean,
I have to keep pushing him to.
they got this stuff to give, and if Tim's house doesn't, or Martha's Kitchen doesn't take it, it's not gonna be available for them anymore, so they need to get it.
We're in email every week. So like I said, we're about halfway through. We'll get there. Even if I gotta add extra stuff on myself, we'll get
But
there.
I gotta believe isn't the deadline, there must be some flexibility for the Elks or no?
I don't believe so.
No.
I couldn't tell you exactly who the grant's through, I probably should know that, but I don't.
It's 12 days.
It's not an
It's towards the end of November that I gotta use it by. But like I said, if I gotta add stuff on, he just has limited space and he needs what he needs that week. It's not, so he prefers it when you have a conversation with him every week. He goes, this week I need hamburger and cups or whatever the case may be. But that's what he needs because he doesn't have a lot of storage.
You can't use money to buy gift cards.
Not with this, I gotta buy stuff. At least that's what I'm told.
You hear Dominic?
We can help with storage if need be.
Okay, I'll let him know that.
Office.
Yeah, we need a hamburger and cups.
How about a couple more things, Bob?
It's, I don't know if Trudy will report this out, but when we met with Jason Weatherby, he said the meals at Martha's Kitchen had dropped significantly.
By half.
For whatever reason. I don't know what that reason is, but.
What do we take with that? How are we taking that?
Some people have, yeah.
People are going, are leaving the city?
No, I think that some people have been told that they can't go in, they can just go to the window because they weren't following his expectations.
Gotcha.
Some people, I think he said, didn't like that.
And he also thinks that because the weather's gotten colder, more people are couch surfing and
Staying in.
maybe staying in more than what they might have before, so.
Last Thursday when I dropped stuff off, there was probably 30, 40 people. And that was right around opening at 11.
Trudy?
I'm gonna give a quick update of the Public Safety Committee and then do my board report. We had a great meeting with the Department of Corrections. The commissioner came with his public relations guy and Superintendent Hale from the local prison. We had a really good meeting with them. They would really, we learned a lot. I think I'd like to have them come and present to the full council. They're really excited to talk about all the things that they have going on at the Department of Corrections. They're doing a lot more around treating people with substance use disorder than we thought. And they're really proud of the work that they're doing. I think it would be good education for everyone to learn what they're doing. Tim is working on setting up a meeting with the town, a small group of us working with the town on addressing some of the challenges that we have around public safety as a greater St. Albans community. That's in the works. I created a one-page, actually it was 2 slides, document on how to start up a neighborhood watch, because we had 50 people at our meeting and the only neighborhood watches that have started were the one that Marie had already started, the one that I started, and the one that maybe Eric's trying to work through.
Yeah, not one interest yet.
So the goal was not that the city council would have to do that on top of all the other work that we're doing, but that is what has happened. So hopefully more people will get on board and help out and set something up in their neighborhoods. We are going to move to meeting just once a month in the new year rather than every 2 weeks. When the DOC was here, they offered us a tour of the prison. If anyone is interested, let me know and we can set that up just to see the facility. And I think that's it for the Public Safety Committee for right now. For my ward reports, I had a resident concerned about Duffy's garbage truck. It's not sealing properly, so once the garbage is all in, it's leaking all the yucky stuff all over the streets. And I'm wondering, I believe that the person concerned called Duffy's and they said that their truck just wasn't sealing properly, but I was curious to know if the city has any like environmental waste like concerns that we could address with Duffy's.
I'd just like to add, I think Duffy's gets out before 7 o'clock in the morning. Too.
Yeah, they were out this morning early in front of my house.
So that would be another,
Yeah.
that goes back to the ordinance we passed.
We want them to be out a little bit later.
Have to be after 7.
I think the ordinance had set the time as no sooner than 7 o'clock. That was in the Jim Pelkey ordinance.
Yeah. there wasn't, I just barely got a text, there was another break-in on Bishop Street in cars, so that is still an issue. Not as prevalent as it was in the past, but it's still happening, so lock those vehicles. I know that things have quieted down a bit for the PD. They're doing a lot of catch-up now. The speeding, the unsafe behavior of drivers, and just the obnoxious loud vehicles. I would love to have, if you could have a conversation with Chief Lamont, even if there are like a couple hours every other day, or I think if we could do some more traffic stops, it would help with the reckless driving that I see. And I mean, that has been a hot topic of conversation in many of our wards. And I'd love to have committee updates as council, like the energy committee, the BEI committee, just on occasion have them let us know what they're working on. Other than that, that's it.
Eric?
Building on what Teresa said with the pedestrian piece too, I had an encounter myself Friday night crossing Fairfield Street at Lincoln. I was beginning to cross because the car was slowing down on the other side coming east, and they turned their blinker on, a truck was kind of behind them, and I was already just kind of crossing, and the truck bombed around them and blasted past me enough that I had to jump back. That was the second incident for me in a month, because the other one was broad daylight in front of Twigs where a car almost hit me. And they were slowing down and sped up. It's really getting ridiculous out there. I was only going to bring it up after a parent and constituent mentioned the dump truck came close to hitting a kid on Walking Wednesday a couple weeks ago, and I think there's maybe it's that intersection where it's happening, or that sidewalk crosswalk. It's the one not across from PD, but it's like a little bit north of PD. It is dark. I went on the Walking Wednesday with them, and it was a bit of a darker spot. Yeah, and you know, there's the piece of the lighting. Maybe we can look at. I don't know if there's transformers there or not to put some overhead lights in that area, and then also maybe I know we've seen them down on in front of Boston Tailoring. They have the sign that says it's the law, state law. There's a yellow. Honestly, even if they get hit, if people are crossing lanes, go around people and almost hitting people crossing, I hope it like dents their bumper or something, you know, when they're hitting those things in the middle of the road. It's like, guys, slow down, pay attention to pedestrians, but just getting it out there to remind people, because we've seen, just in the last month, I've seen it previously too, and I take it with a grain of salt, but Facebook posts where people argue that pedestrians really need to watch where they're going because the cars have right of way. Well, no. If they're in a crosswalk, pedestrians have right of way, you need to stop. And I think there's like maybe a PSA map, but I don't know where that is. Actually, I do. Weldon on Friday, I noticed that we're doing advertising in there. I wonder if we can maybe put some things out like pedestrian safety, or, you know, other initiatives we're working on just to educate the public that might go to Weldon and watch a movie. It might not be the exact demographic we're looking at, but it might be helpful. So.
How much are those blinky things that we have over here? Are those a lot?
10 to 12.
Are there any grants available for those?
The other piece with that is getting it by state highway V-Trans, because they discourage multiple because it loses its effect.
Oh, its value, yeah.
So that's one
They tend to
thing.
spread like mushrooms. As soon as you get one, right, everybody's.
And that's what I'm thinking, just thinking the road even.
We used to have
The
those
one by
big
Gilman
roads.
is bad.
Is that where
Across
that
across
person was
that
killed?
It's dark.
It's dark and it's hard.
And all the kids in Ward 5 either take the one at the light or the one there to meet up with the bus that walks on the other side, which there's
Across that
8
lot.
kids that come across.
I'm just going back to your point there, I totally agree with you, but a lot of pedestrians just, I mean, before I leave the curb, I make sure the car's stopped.
Yeah.
A lot of people just say, well, I'm going.
Yeah.
And
Well, and I expected the truck behind the car to stop, and then bombing around, it was like, whoa.
You're right about that, but I mean, people just jump out there and cars haven't even made the motion to stop.
I saw the
Well,
same
in-
exact thing happen in front of town school where I stopped for 2 young girls and the car passed me when I was stopped. And luckily the girls were paying attention and they didn't get hit, but again, traffic.
But to Mayor Smith's point, also, like, there's the, I think drivers are also sick of, we have crosswalks, and I often see people just crossing wherever they want, and they're just popping out from between cars, where the crosswalks are laid out in a way that you can see someone coming out. So I think people are also getting tired of both components. It's like people need to also use the crosswalks, especially if they're 5 or 10 feet away from them. You see that often. It's like, guys, a little bit further, extra steps. Sorry, enough about pedestrian safety. We've already talked about the business inquiry. I've shared neighborhood watch in my ward. Not getting a lot of interest yet, so I'm still pushing it out there. I get it on social, I put it on the website for ward5bt.com. Putting up posters next to kind of get a feeling if people want it. Luckily, knock on wood, Ward 5's seen a bit of a downtick compared to what I'm hearing elsewhere in the city. So that might be, reducing some of the spur. We haven't seen as many ring alerts from people sharing, hey, people on my property. But nonetheless, as we said, when things are happening, that's when neighborhood watches happen. I'd rather see some sort of regularity. And the only last thing I had was I joked about it, but parking markings. And I know that Marty said it's the state for Main Street, but going downtown, and we always talk about the limited parking and people taking so many spots. How many times I go down by the park and people are taking up like 2 spaces here, 2 spaces here, but you can't see any lines. There's none there. So it's not their fault because they're not outside of any lines. You can't see where to park. Because I got blocked in one day. I could just barely make it out. I parked in the line, but a truck parked like right on my bumper, and had the car right behind me. And I'm like, okay, well that was helpful. So I don't know what we can do about that. If there's any way to spring get the state to actually, well, the state has to do it apparently on that one.
No.
No?
No,
Oh, that's
the
what
state does it once whenever they come through with their paving.
we can do it otherwise.
Yeah, the state's not gonna come back.
Lake Street.
They'll do the center line.
Oh, okay.
They'll do the center line.
Or parking?
They don't do parking or anything else.
Oh, okay. So maybe this spring we can look into just it's costly, I know that, but I know. Anyways, that's what else I have. Thank you.
Mr. Hawkins?
I'm good.
Quick things, I don't need any comments. To your point, about 3 months ago, Sue Kazavant called me up, said that it's very dangerous in front of the UPS building. UPS trucks are going in there and they're parking right where the abutment is, where people are crossed, and so the truck's there and the car's going around the truck and there's someone actually crossing there. I don't want to run that business out or anything, but maybe someone should just think of a time that they should talk to UPS people. Because I didn't bring it to the council's attention, but I've now seen it 3 or 4 times. So and this conversation brought that to my attention tonight, or my memory tonight. The other thing is, like I said earlier, Trudy, Chad, and myself are on the joint police board, and we had a little bit of good news from Chief Lamoth about the activity, the downfall in the downward departure in the criminal activity going on. And he gave some statistics, and I wish that he would be able to share that with the public and the council so that we all see that the things that they're doing is working. So, because a lot of stuff is going, there is some good news. The other thing is I sent everyone a kind of a really put together really quickly ordinance on needle exchange program. And I'm against that. I'm against that program even being in the city limits, but I'm certainly against it being anywhere in the downtown. And I just want to know, do we need to talk about this in open session sometime again or what? But I'm not going to let that one die. So, and my last one, Chip, I don't know if you were around. Seems like decades ago when Good Stuff first came in.
Chip was around then.
Maybe in high school. Decades ago when I was on what was then called the Zoning Board of Adjustment, Good Stuff came around, and we decided that that establishments like that were only going to be allowed in the industrial part of the city. And I don't know if that's still good law or not. I didn't check, but I'm wondering how the smoke shop on Main Street got there.
It's retail. They're just selling items. The adult establishment rule, the way it's written right now, requires some form of adult entertainment.
It was more than that. It was the selling of tobacco products. And
I'd have to look again. I don't think I don't think that's in there right now. I think maybe it was
It's
changed.
good, Devin.
Okay.
To your point, I've had multiple people ask the same question.
Yeah, me too.
And I don't have a problem with good stuff down there. They probably do a good business. I'm glad they're there. That's where we wanted them. But I just don't know if I like the idea about something right on our main corridor.
With the high school.
Yeah,
Yeah, never mind that open.
that's all I have.
Blanking.
Maybe we could talk about that more in the next meeting.
That's why we fund the downtown business development grants to get the things we want.
Part of it.
Well, it seemed like that just popped up all of a sudden, and,
No, it is.
and it's
Yeah.
like, what?
Yeah,
Where'd
I
this come
agree,
from?
I
yeah.
think we need a land use change too with regards to the brightness of your open sign. Goodness. I think you have flashing, but that thing is like a headlighting that you come down Fairfield.
Okay.
Motion to approve minutes 10/14/24.
I think I only have one correction. It says commission members present. We normally do city council members. I'm not sure if it's permanent, but
You get that? And, so a motion, Katie, right? Is it Katie?
sorry.
So, motion, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Trudy, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion to approve 10/28/24 special meeting.
Second.
Motion from Tim, second by Trudy on minutes for a special meeting. All those, any comments or corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Anyone opposed?
And motion to, I haven't had, by the way, what's going on with warrants? I haven't had one to approve for a while. Are we done doing that now?
What do you mean?
Uh,
Don't you recall? I was first back and you said, Sarah, I knew you'd come back to do great things.
Okay. I love it. I'm loving it, but I'm just wondering if someone just skipped over me for a reason.
No, we removed the council from that process.
Okay.
Right, so the review of the warrant in the packet and then approving it in the minutes satisfies what's needed, and you all still have access to review invoices online through the Kofax portal whenever you'd like,
Oh, you were?
and we're happy to answer questions.
Thank you very much. Motion to approve warrants 10/31/24.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Eric. Any comments, concerns?
What's that?
Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Before we adjourn, just quickly, what is the timeline and structure for the budget? When will you be meeting? When will you be?
All of that will be conveyed at the December meeting. So, schedule and all that, will be laid out in December.
All right, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So moved.